representatives to remain seated while we greet the President. The Assembly will now hear an address by Her Excellency Michelle Bachelet, President of the Republic of Chile. I request the protocol to escort Her Excellency. On behalf of the General Assembly, I have the honor to welcome to the United Nations Her Excellency Michelle Bachelet, President of the Republic of Chile, and I invite her to address the Assembly.
Señor Presidente.
President, heads of state and heads of government, ladies and gentlemen. Today's world is faced with both challenges and tasks. We are witnessing a plethora of serious international crises in various parts of the world that have impacted international peace and security, most notably in the Middle East, but also in Europe and Africa, and affecting in particular huge segments of the civilian populations who, in desperation, are fleeing in order to save their lives and forge a better future. As an international community, we are duty-bound to react with solidarity in order to restore peace and deploy a response that will enable us to minimize the suffering of both the victims of war and those who are fleeing from it. We commend the efforts many countries are making to take in the refugees, but we must do more. This is why my government has decided to take in refugees from the civil war in Syria, and it is also why Chile will expand cooperation with Africa. As of 2016, for example, we will be participating in United Nations peacekeeping operations in that region. In addition to tackling the most urgent challenges threatening peace, our planet has yet to stem growing inequality or reach an agreement that would halt global warming. It is for this reason, against this backdrop of such serious international challenges, that this 70th session of the General Assembly will go down in history as a momentous occasion at which the international community succeeded in forging an agreement, namely the 2030 Agenda for Sustainable Development. This is an agenda replete with hope and binding in nature. It focuses on addressing various aspects of inequality, which is the main challenge to be found in Latin America, and of course it goes without saying in Chile as well, in this new phase of our economic and political development. The agenda is broad and ambitious, and it is commensurate with the pressing challenges and the long-term goals of fair, creative and peaceful human coexistence. It does not sweep aside those commitments already entered into whose fulfillment is still pending, but rather incorporates new goals and targets, integrating them multidimensionally into the concept of sustainable and inclusive development. It is, in other words, an agenda of change. This is an approach which we share and vigorously support. Equality within and among countries, equality between men and women, growth, industrialization and inclusive and sustainable consumption, protection of the environment in its various facets, social peace, to name but a few of the agenda's goals. These are the face and indeed the foundation of a mode of coexistence based on very deeply held values. We have an opportunity to address the feelings of despair and hopelessness about the future and the lack of trust in institutions that permeate some of our societies. The chief responsibility for sustainable and more equal development rests with each individual country. Chile is wholeheartedly committed to delivering on this responsibility. However, success in this endeavour requires a propitious environment, since many of the targets are affected by global dynamics, and most of the challenges that we face today cannot be resolved by any country acting in isolation. Only if we can deliver on an agenda of change at the global as well as the national level will it be possible to promote more inclusive and sustainable societies. When international trade does not act as an engine of growth, when financial flows are asymmetrical, minimal and volatile, if there are no fair and effective mechanisms for dealing with sovereign debt, if there are not enough predictable flows of official development assistance, then emerging countries, and especially the poorer ones, will have great difficulty in attaining the goals contained in this 2030 agenda. Similarly, it is clear that international financial, monetary and trading systems must operate more democratically, effectively and fairly in relation to the interests of developing countries. Currently, that is not always the case. Consequently, a basic prerequisite for making the agenda a reality is to strengthen the system of global institutions and multilateral cooperation with broad representation, clear mandates and effective tools. We are calling for an architecture of multilateral institutions that will provide backing for the national policies proposed under the 2030 agenda. Chile is a country that has strengthened its role in the multilateral system. In 2014 and 2015, we have served as a non-permanent member of the Security Council. In light of this experience, we wish to reaffirm our belief in the need to reform the Council by increasing the number of its permanent members and by reducing the use of the veto, at the very least in cases of crimes against humanity. Such a reform is necessary, reflecting the considerable change and progress seen in the multilateral system, and it would undoubtedly confer greater legitimacy on this most important organ of the United Nations. We, as a country, are aware that we are all responsible for ensuring that the international system works properly. One essential element in so doing is the principle of adherence to international law, which includes strict respect for treaties as a means of guaranteeing peace and international stability. This requires respecting what has been agreed on and refraining from misusing those mechanisms that have been designed for pacifically resolving any differences that may exist. From its home in the southernmost tip of the American continent, Chile is looking forward, full of hope, to the outcome of COP21 in Paris. We have one of the longest coastlines in the world. We will soon be hosting the second Our Ocean Conference, a conference at which countries will be asked to make voluntary commitments to reduce pollution of the seas, to combat illegal fishing, and to protect the diversity of marine resources. My country has recently agreed its intended nationally determined contribution, or INDC, which consists of our commitment to reduce by 2030 our CO2 emissions by 30% and by up to 45% if we can count on robust international support. Moreover, we are determined to restore 100,000 acres of forest and reforest an additional 100,000 acres of land. Agenda 2030 gives us a shared horizon, a shared destination, but now we must act. Each country must act individually, of course, but at the same time we must cooperate with each other in the various North-South and South-South fora, and must tackle global challenges jointly in the multilateral fora that we have available to us. I should like to conclude this statement by congratulating two governments which have resumed diplomatic relations recently, namely Cuba and the United States of America. This is a historic step for our region and for the world. Chile applauds the use of dialogue and respect for international law as being the civilized way for countries to resolve their differences. But I'd also like to say that we are extraordinarily pleased to see that there have been so many agreements reached as well between the government of Colombia and the Revolutionary Armed Forces of Colombia. We believe this is also proof that where there is a will, there is a way to come to an agreement. Colombia and its people can count on our active support in this process, which we are confident will lead to a lasting peace. We have reason to be proud of our joint achievements, and also, let it be said, to be concerned about and attentive to our collective future. But there are grounds for hope as well. These beliefs should guide our action and our commitment to build a better world. A world in which there is better balance between development and preservation of our environment. A world in which we saw more justice, cohesion and equality in our societies and among our peoples. Thank you very much.